Good afternoon, IPDETers. Good afternoon. Before we get started, I'd like to make an announcement about tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is graduation. It's week 3 graduation. So we graduate those who have been here the first 3 weeks, and those who have been and are leaving us, and those who have come just for week 3, and just for the second half of week 3. Even if you are local Ottawa Canadian, we want you to come to graduation. We plan for you to come to graduation, and we hold this event at a restaurant called Lego, which is on the lake. It's a wonderful, a little more casual, a little less formal than our Chateau Laurier was. And it's got great music, great dancing, good food. Marie-Helene says, yeah. You know, it's a fun place. So even those of you who are not staying on campus, we really encourage you to come and have a good time. And so we hope to see you there tomorrow night. So come for week 3 graduation. It's a lot of fun. So now I'm delighted to introduce Marco Segone, who's long been a friend of IPDET's. And many of you know Marco through the sort of the various hats that he wears. He was, for a while, he was head of evaluation and evaluation capacity development programs for UNICEF. He more recently has moved on and is now director of the Independent Evaluation Office at UN Women. But he's also chair of the UN Evaluation Group, UNEG. And he is also, perhaps most well known, for his role as co-founder and co-chair of Eval Partners. And many of you may be involved in some of the activities that Eval Partners has going on. And most particularly, the activities related to the celebration of 2015 as the year of evaluation and the year of international evaluation. So Marco's going to be talking today about evaluation and the Sustainable Development Goals. Marco has a usually informal style of presentation. He likes to be interactive. I think the last time we had him speak, he was sort of charging around the dining room area. So, Marco, I'm not necessarily inviting you up to the podium. If you would like to just take the mic and walk around, it's time. So please join me in giving Marco a warm welcome. Microphone?
I think I already have yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Linda. And good afternoon to everybody. It's really a big pleasure to be with all of you. And actually, I wanted to start saying good afternoon to everybody, but also bonjour, bon dia, buenos dias, guten tag. No, good. And really, because I know that it's a very international group, the group of IPDET. And it's really a big pleasure to be once again back with IPDET. Not only because it's always a pleasure, but also because it's always a pleasure to meet all of you. But this year, as Linda just said, is a special year, and it's the International Year of Evaluation, and therefore we will have a small surprise at the end of my talk. So I've been asked to talk about evaluation and the Sustainable Development Goals. And in the next 15 minutes, I will try to cover this aspect that you can see on the screen. So what's the world that we have versus the world that we want? What do we mean with equitable development? And then some good news, but also the challenge for the evaluation community and the best way forward. So let me start with the world that we have versus the world that we would like to have. Well, the world that we have is that, unfortunately, we have a massive concentration of wealth. As you can see here in the slides, I mean, the richest 1% of the population owns 40% of the world's wealth, while the poorest 50% of the population owns only 1% of the world's wealth. If that's not enough, there is another quite striking indicator, and that is that the world's 3 richest people own wealth equivalent to the combined GDP of the world's poorest 48 countries. So I think these 2 indicators are already quite striking. You may say, okay, but this is only about, income poverty. But if we, what did I do? But if we look also at the social development, unfortunately, the situation is not much different. And once again, I mean, I could present you the situation of all the Millennium Development Goals, but just for the sake of time, I just highlighted 2 of them. The first one is that almost 1 billion people is still malnourished. Here this is 2013. So still in 2013, we have almost 1 billion people still malnourished. And also this one I think is quite striking. I mean, 1 in 3 women will be beaten, raped, abused, or mutilated in their lifetimes. And let me just open a small bracket for my men colleagues. I think this indicator, the women who are here in the audience will immediately understand what's the meaning of these indicators. So just for my colleagues or my men colleagues, just to say, all of us as a mother, many of us as a wife or a partner, and some of us as a daughter. So from a statistical point of view, these indicators means that 1 of the 3 is likely that will be beaten, raped, or abused, or mutilated in their lifetime. So, and this indicator is not about the middle age. Once again, it's an indicator from 2013. So the situation is really that we have so far is really, may we say, a little bit depressing. And overwhelming, the bottom line is that the poor is the ones who suffer the most. So is this the world that we want? Or we would like an equitable development for equitable society? Or we would like a world where all rights for all human beings everywhere at any times are realized? But to achieve this goal, we have to prioritize the most deprived. Because we have to avoid this situation where we are like the man over there who is saying, for our first election, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Without taking in consideration the different situations where those guys find themselves. That's why we talk about the importance of equity in social development. The idea is that equity is a strategy to achieve equality. So if we want that everybody, regardless of gender, race, age, et cetera, can achieve the same rights, then we have to give priority to those who find themselves in the most disadvantaged situation. And here is just a visual to express this concept. So if we want the 3 guys to enjoy the game, and we distribute the resources, in this case the boxes, evenly in the same manner without taking into consideration the different situation, then we will end up having only the tall guy enjoying the game and the short one not. So the concept of equity is linked to the concept of social justice. It's linked to the concept that if somebody is in a disadvantaged situation, probably needs more resources, in this case, more boxes, than the one that is already enjoying the game. So that's more or less the idea of equity. Now, the important is that when we think about the world that we have, we should not be in this situation, but we should be more in this one. And mainly because we have some very good news. The first one is that several countries, they are recognizing the importance of equitable development. More and more countries are even putting goals in their national development strategies to decrease the inequality between the different population groups. But also the international development community is doing so. And here is where I would like to stop for a moment and talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. How many of you are aware of the fact that right now the negotiations for the Sustainable Development Goals are going on? Very good. I mean, quite a big chunk of people. And so the Sustainable Development Goals will be, hopefully, endorsed in September by the General Assembly in New York. But there are some very important differences between the Sustainable Development Goals and the Millennium Development Goals. As you know, the MDGs are coming to an end this year, and the SDGs will be for the next 15 years. So as you are already at least aware of the negotiations that are going on, I just would like to hear from you, are you aware of what would be the key differences between the Sustainable Development Goals and the Millennium Development Goals? So I think now I'm starting. Can you give the mic?
They're universal. They're not only for developing countries, they're for all countries.
Okay, so this is one of the big differences and very important. Because the MDGs, mainly, as you will recall, the first 7 goals were mainly for developing countries, and only MDG 8 that was about resources were mainly for developed countries. While the SDGs are universal and are applicable and relevant to all countries. It doesn't matter the level of economic development. So that's one big difference.
Would it be the way in which they've been developed, like far more participation of different stakeholders to reach those goals?
This is the second big difference. The MDGs, they have mainly been developed by a relatively small group of people without much participation. The SDG have been developed by a lot of stakeholders. There have been even online consultations with, I think, 1 million people engaging. And if they have been developed through a much more participatory process, and therefore that means that it's more likely that if you participate in the development of an idea, it's more likely that you are engaged, that you will support, and you will own those goals. And what's another big difference?
The number from 8 to 17. Many indicators.
From 8 to 17 goals, but 169 targets. So much more than 17. So that's on the one side it means that it's going to be, they are more challenging, but it means that they are more comprehensive. So they are more comprehensive, but it will be more complex, both to implement them, but also to monitor and evaluate them. And what another difference?
Thank you. I think they integrate better socio-economic and environmental aspects.
Exactly, so they are more comprehensive and more integrated. And the last difference, I'm just running because of the time. So I think you cover everything: universal, comprehensive, and integrated, inclusive in the process. But you miss the most important: focus on gender and social inequality. How does it come? How does it come? Because there is SDG 5, that is a standalone goal on gender equality, and SDG 10, that is a standalone goal on social inequality. But then both gender and social inequality are also mainstream in the 17 goals. So what's the challenge for the evaluation community? And here are some of the questions. So if equitable development is now predominant in the international and national discourse, if equitable development is mainstream in the Sustainable Development Goals that will shape the development agenda for the next 15 years, how to evaluate equitable development interventions? What are the evaluation questions to assess interventions are relevant and are having an impact in decreasing inequity and achieving results for the worst off groups? And what are the methodological, political, social, and financial implications in designing, conducting, managing, and using evaluation that are responsive to social equity and gender equality? So those are some of the challenges that we as evaluation community, we will have to address the increasing demand that there will be by policymakers to evaluate interventions for equitable development. So one good news is that, as you know, now it has been quite a few years that there is this approach on so-called the equity focus and gender responsive evaluation that can be of help to address some of those questions. These are two books that are available free of charge online that you can download in the mymne.org website. One is a technical book on how to design and manage equity-focused evaluation, and the other one is a collection of articles from different evaluators. There is also this one from UNEG that is on how to integrate human rights and gender equality in evaluation. That is also free of charge. And UN Women has just launched a magazine on gender responsive evaluation. So it's also another resource for this kind of evaluations. Now, just to say that equity-focused evaluation is not about something completely new. This is the definition of any evaluation that you are already familiar with, an assessment made of the relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, and impact and sustainability of interventions. When it comes to equity focus, is that the focus is on the equitable development results. And in addition, they also look at the structural bottlenecks and power relationship, etc. So we are not saying that it's something completely new. We are not saying that you have to forget whatever you have done so far, but we are just saying that you should apply your knowledge and skills, but using an equity lens. So if you are somebody who is hired to evaluate these public policies to reduce poverty in this country. So here is the income poverty level, 55% 2005. And here in 2015, after 10 years of the public policies, it went down to 35. What's the main findings of your evaluation regarding these public policies to reduce income poverty? Has been effective or not? So positive finding, no? Good news. I mean, it went down quite a lot. And therefore, what's the recommendation? Continue. Because, I mean, in the next 15 years, you will arrive almost at 0% of income poverty. So that would be the findings and recommendation if you have a traditional evaluation approach. Now, if you look at the same, exactly the same policy with an equity and gender responsive lens, what you would look at? How the policy is affecting in different manner men and women. So the first things you will look at disaggregated data, etc. And therefore, for those of you who cannot see, the red is the female, and the green is the male, and the blue is the national average. So what would be the finding? Now that's the recommendation. The finding? Change policy is
Change
already
policies,
there.
yeah.
That's already the recommendation.
Okay. The finding is that women are much worse off than men.
Exactly. The findings is that income poverty in women is not going down as quickly, as fast as the men. So this policy is not so effective in reducing income poverty among women. And the second finding?
The gap is growing.
Exactly. The gap, instead of decreasing, is increasing. So exactly the same policy, if you evaluate the same policy with an equity-focused lens, the findings will be different and the recommendation will be different, because before we were saying go on with this policy, and now you are saying change the policy. So the key message is that it's not just a matter of an issue of semantic, but it's really a quite revolutionary approach to evaluation. So, but this has several challenges, as we said, political, social, economical, and also methodological challenges. So the idea is how we can move forward and to address the challenges on evaluating equitable development. And that's why 2015 was declared as the International Year of Evaluation. International Year of Evaluation is a global initiative of coordinated local action. So the idea is to advocate and promote the demand and the use of evaluation in evidence-based policymaking, and really to try to reach out the policymaking community, because usually we are talking always among ourselves, among evaluators. And I think that what we have failed so far is really to reach out the policymakers. And why 2015? 2015, because the MDGs, as you probably know, they have been quite good in tracking, but evaluation has been almost absent. So the idea is that by having 2015 as the International Year of Evaluation, we want to mainstream evaluation in the future Sustainable Development Goals. Now, let me just to clarify one thing, that is that the International Year of Evaluation is not official UN international year. So it's not a top-down decision, but it's exactly the other way around. It's a bottom-up movement. Because everything started in March 2012 during the African Evaluation Association conference in Ghana, where IOCs, that is the World Federation of the Evaluation Associations, together with UNICEF, they came together and they decided to launch Eval Partners, that is the global partnership on capacity development. After that, there was, in December 2012, the Global Eval Partner Forum in Chiang Mai, where different stakeholders came together. And in February 2013, there was a meeting of Eval Partners in New York, and that's where it was taken the decision to declare 2015 as the International Year of Evaluation. It was officially launched during the National Evaluation Conference in Brazil in November 2014. And only in December 2014, the UN General Assembly acknowledged these already existing movements, bottom-up movements, and the General Assembly acknowledged the International Year of Evaluation. And then the nowadays famous evaluation torch was lit for the first time in January in the UN building. And in April, we had even the UN Secretary General with a torch here. And since then, we have virtually all countries and regions in the world that, in a way or the other, have celebrated the international evaluation, with few exceptions that you see over there in Asia. And that comes from the ministers in developed countries. This is the Minister of Finance in New Zealand, to ministers in emerging countries. That's the Minister of Planning in India and the Minister of Social Affairs in Egypt. But also to young evaluators in different countries. The idea of Evaluation Torch is really to try to connect all the different events that are happening around the world to celebrate the International Year of Evaluation. As of today, we have 66 events planned. And these 66 events will discuss these 4 points, either all of them or one of them, etc. And the celebration will end up in Nepal in November, where there will be the Global Evaluation Week that will be hosted at the Parliament of Nepal. So it will be the first time, I would say, somehow in the history of the evaluation community, to have a global evaluation event hosted in a national parliament. And there will be also parliamentarians from all over the world for this. At the Global Evaluation Week, there will be few initiatives to be launched. There will be the Global Evaluation Agenda for 2016-2020. That is really an attempt to identify the priorities for the evaluation community for the next years linked to the SDGs. But then there will be also these other 4 initiatives. There will be the Global Parliamentarian Forum for Evaluation that will be launched. And there are already 3 existing, one in Africa, one in South Asia, and one in the Middle East. And then Eval Gender Plus, that is also a partnership to strengthen gender-responsive evaluation and equity-focused evaluation. Eval Youth, that is an initiative to strengthen the capacities and the skills of young evaluators, but also the access of young evaluators to the market, to the labor market for evaluation. And Eval SDGs, that is also an initiative to evaluate the SDGs. So, as I know that everybody has to go back to the class, I wanted just to finish with inviting, first of all, Linda and Ray to come here, and Ada Ocampo, who is from UNICEF and has been involved with Eval Partner from the right beginning, to make sure that also IPDET it will be the 34th events or events where the evaluation torch is going to be lit. And after, I would like to invite all of you to come here and to take a picture with the historic evaluation torch. So let me see if it works. Are you ready? Are you ready 1? Are you ready 2? Are you ready 3? Yay!
All right. If we could have your attention, please. Attention, please. Okay. We have about 5 minutes before we have to go back to class, and Marco has said that he will take some questions. So if we could finish up with the flame for the moment. All right. Can we finish up with the flame?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, yes? Last flame picture. Thank you. Marie-Helene is the last flame picture. All right. Questions for Marco. The floor is open if you have questions for Marco.
Questions. Everything clear? I would expect one question. Okay, because otherwise I have the question that I would expect from you.
The question is really more around the sustainable development goals, because the fact that there's so many, the fact that there is multiplicity of them, what are the challenges of having such a diverse set in terms of being able to monitor their achievement? Because I know that that's been some criticism about the fact that there's so many compared to the last one. So what would, they're inclusive, it's good, but there's many. Is there any challenges in how it will be done to monitor their achievement?
Of course, I mean, the challenge is that as they are comprehensive and integrated, they are complex. They are complex to implement, to monitor, and to evaluate. But the reality is that life is complex. The world is complex. I mean, development is complex. So your question was specifically on monitoring. You were saying how to monitor. So another big difference between the SDG and the MDGs, I don't know if you have heard about the data revolution. So the SDGs, they come with a very strong request and demand to strengthen national capacities to monitor equitable development in general and the SDGs in particular. And once again, even the indicators, it's likely that the list of indicators will not be ready by September. And that's due for two reasons. One is that 169 targets. But the second is that for the MDGs, the indicators mainly, they were developed by the UN Statistical Division with just very few consultation. This time, the indicators, there is an entire architecture put in place to develop the indicators, where the national statistical offices from all over the world, they have a big say in the identification of the indicators. And these big says, one of the key criteria will be also feasibility. Not only economical feasibility, but also really technical feasibility, given the different contexts in different countries. Any other question or comments? You know, if you have been involved in your own organization and country, also if you have comments and ideas.
If not, I think we can just wrap up.
And let me just say well,
Sure.
The last small things is really an invitation for each and every one of you, when you go back to your country, to your organization, really to try to reach out either your National Evaluation Association or any mechanism that is in place in your country that is working on evaluation, to make sure that not only that they also get involved in the international area of evaluation, but really to make sure that this message of the importance of equitable development, and therefore the importance of strengthening national capacities to evaluate equitable development, is really carry forward, not only in 2015, but really in the next years. As I said, the international evaluation is a bottom-up approach. It's something that started with a few people, with the idea of few people, and now, as I just said, is more than 66 events all over the world. So that has been possible just because of the active engagement of a lot of people everywhere in all the countries, in different organizations, etc. So somehow, as evaluators, it's really the responsibility of each one of us really to engage and to drive and to champion this cause. So feel yourself as the ambassador of the evaluation year in your own country and organization, and try really to push forward this agenda, and still always remaining in contact with the colleagues from other countries.
I think this group in particular, you're change agents. You're
Excellent.
the agents of the change. Thank you, Marco.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Marco, we have a few gifts for you to thank you for your talk today. This is a little, one of these little charges that will keep something going, a PDA, an iPad, or what have you, for about 26 hours. And as you travel so much, that should be useful for you. Yeah, a little, I don't, it has something in there to plug in and
that's a
charge.
big one.
Yeah, 26 hours worth.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be useful.
Thanks a
And
lot.
then this is a little paperweight. You probably add this to your collection. But this one's a little bit special because it's celebrating 15 years of IPDET. And it says IPDET 15th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's
Thanks
nice.
a lot.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
And you probably want the box
Okay,
to protect
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So thank you
absolutely.
again, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
Very fun
Thank you.
and enlightening.
Thanks.
Good.